You're looking at a Roman shoe. This is one too, and this. But they're nothing like standard military footwear. A typical soldier's sole ran 25 to 28 centimetres. These measure over 30. One reaches 32.6, the largest Roman shoe ever recorded. 32 of them, pulled from a single waterlogged ditch at Magna Fort on Hadrian's wall, a garrison once manned by Syrian archers and Dalmatian mountain troops from opposite ends of the empire. No one can explain why so many oversized shoes ended up here. The answer may still be sealed in the mud that preserved them. Leather rarely survives 2,000 years in the ground. At Magna Fort, though, the north side ditch created a rare exception. The fill here stayed saturated, waterlogged, and nearly devoid of oxygen from the moment Roman engineers cut it. Instead of crumbling to dust, organic remains, leather, wood, even scraps of textile, were effectively sealed away, shielded from the microbes and insects that would normally break them down. The secret lies in the chemistry of the mud itself. Low oxygen, or semi-anaerobic, conditions suppress the usual bacterial decay. In this environment, the tannins in the leather bind with minerals in the soil, forming a tough, stable matrix that resists rot. Over centuries, the ditch acted like a natural vault, preserving shoes and other fragile items in layers of fine, silty clay. This is not a matter of luck. Survival depended on continuous saturation, not on chance. The geology of the Northumberland basin, a patchwork of glacial clays and poorly drained soils, helped maintain these conditions. When Roman builders finished the ditch, they deliberately sealed it with compacted earth and turf. That cut off the air and locked in the moisture, setting up the perfect conditions for preservation. The same techniques are known from other forts along Hadrian's wall, but Magna's ditch fill proved especially effective. The Magna project, launched in 2023, set out to explore these unique preservation layers as part of a 5-year excavation plan. Archaeologists opened trenches along the North Ditch, targeting the deepest, most waterlogged deposits. Every spadeful of mud had to be recorded, sampled, and sifted for organic finds. The results quickly justified the approach. The first oversized shoe surfaced in May 2025, and more followed, each one lifted from the sticky, oxygen-poor clay that had kept it intact for centuries. Scientific analysis of the ditch fill confirmed the process. Microbiological studies found only the faintest traces of aerobic decay. The main preservation agents were anaerobic bacteria, which produce sulfides that bind with iron and stabilize the environment. Leather, usually among the first materials to vanish, instead became the most eloquent witness to the fort's buried history. The Magna shoes survived not because of any miracle, but because the Romans, and the landscape itself, conspired to create a perfect capsule of the past. The northern ditch at Magna was never just a line in the ground. It was engineered as a steep-sided barrier, the kind designed to snap ankles and halt attackers in their tracks. Roman military manuals called for obstacles that turned the very earth into a weapon. At Magna, this meant a trench cut deep and narrow, its walls collapsing inward over time, making escape almost impossible for anyone who tumbled in. Yet centuries later, the ditch became something else, a silent collector of what the fort left behind. The oldest shoe-bearing material lies at the very bottom, pressed into a dark, fine-grained layer rich with decayed plants and fragments of charcoal. This basal organic band is where the largest shoes were found, sealed away from the world above. Above this, the story grows more complicated. Later fills are less pure, mixing in broken pottery, cattle bones, and scraps of domestic rubbish. These upper layers tell of a ditch reused after its days as a frontline defence, slowly turning into a refuse pit as the fort's military role faded. Between these horizons sits a thin burn layer, just a streak of carbon and ash, but enough to spark questions. Charcoal samples from this band date to the early 2nd century, matching the fort's first stone phase. Some archaeologists see it as the trace of a small fire, maybe linked to a skirmish or a ritual closure. Others warn against reading too much into a single burnt patch. The evidence refuses to settle into a single story. Frank Gill's approach is to read the sequence of layers like a forensic puzzle. He notes the sharp boundary between the basal organic layer, which holds the shoes, and the later, more chaotic fills above. The lack of domestic debris in the shoe horizon hints at something more than routine rubbish dumping. But there's no neat line between deliberate burial and accidental loss. Defensive ditches were dangerous places, but also liminal zones where the ordinary rules of the fort did not always apply. Shoes might be lost in the mud during repairs or tossed in after a change of garrison. They might also be placed with intention as offerings or markers of a moment now lost to record. The Magna ditch resists easy classification. Its layers are neither a pure trash heap nor a carefully arranged ritual deposit. Instead, the sequence preserves a record of shifting uses and meanings. The shoes, especially the giants among them, sit at the heart of this ambiguity, neither fully explained by accident nor by design. The ditch, once a barrier, became a deposit, its purpose rewritten by centuries of human action and natural decay. Magna stands on a ridge above the South Tyne Valley, 11 kilometres west of Vindolanda, where two of the most important arteries in northern Roman Britain once crossed. The Steingut, running east to west, connected Corbridge to Carlisle, acting as the main supply route for the frontier before Hadrian's Wall even existed. The Maiden Way, striking north from the Pennine uplands, met the Steingate at Magna's doorstep. Here, the fort commanded the intersection, watching, regulating, and sometimes blocking the flow of people and goods across the wild borderlands. The earliest Roman presence here was not stone and permanence, but timber and improvisation. Around 85 AD, soldiers built a camp of wood, turf, and earth, part of the Steingut frontier system that predated the wall. These early ramparts were temporary by design, meant to secure the road, shelter a detachment, and allow Rome to project power into the north. The fort's timber phase lasted nearly 40 years, through the reigns of Domitian and Trajan, during a period when the limits of empire were still being tested and redrawn. Everything changed after 122 AD, when Hadrian's Wall cut across the landscape just to the north. The wall was more than a barrier, it was an anchor for a new military order. Magna responded in kind. The timber camp was dismantled and its footprint replaced by stone. Foundations were sunk deep into the wind-sill bedrock. New barracks, headquarters, and granaries rose in regular rows, enclosed by thick stone walls and a new set of ditches. The transformation was not just architectural, it signalled a long-term commitment to the site, an investment in control, surveillance, and continuity. Magna's stone fortifications remained a fixture for centuries, even as the garrison changed and the political winds shifted. Its position at the crossroads of the Steingate and Maiden Way made it a natural hub for movement, a place where soldiers, traders, and officials passed through or lingered. The fort's strategic value meant that every phase, timber, stone, and beyond, left its mark in the ground. This continuity of occupation and purpose set Magna apart from more isolated or short-lived frontier posts. When rare, outsized finds appear in its ditches, they speak not from the margins, but from the heart of a site that shaped and was shaped by the flow of Roman Britain. Syrian archers once patrolled the ramparts of Magna, their origins nearly 2,000 miles from this northern edge of the empire. The cohors, First Hamiorum, Sagittariorum, recruited from Hama in today's Syria, were not just another auxiliary unit, they were specialists, trained with the composite bow and accustomed to the long marches and harsh terrain of distant provinces. Inscriptions and military diplomas confirm their presence at Magna by the 2nd century, placing men from the Orontes Valley into the heart of Britain's wild borderlands. Their arrival was no accident. Roman commanders deliberately stationed non-local troops along the frontier, a strategy designed to prevent local alliances and to harness skills honed on other battlefields. Dalmatian mountain troops joined them later, drawn from the rugged highlands of the Western Balkans. The cohors secund Dalmatarum brought a different kind of expertise. Infantry hardened by steep terrain and heavy loads, men whose daily lives had prepared them for the physical demands of a frontier outpost. Archaeological finds, including an altar dedication at Magna, document their presence in the later 2nd century. Skeletal studies from their homeland suggest an average stature slightly above the Roman norm, with robust limb bones shaped by a life spent climbing and carrying. The garrison at Magna was never a monoculture. Instead, it was a crossroads, a meeting point for people, languages, and customs from across the empire. The fort's daily rhythms echoed with the sounds of Latin commands, Eastern dialects, and the clatter of boots made to fit more than one tradition. Official equipment lists called for standard issue caligae, but the reality on the ground was more complicated. The army's supply chain stretched from the workshops of the Mediterranean to the tanneries of northern Britain, adapting to the needs of men whose feet and fighting styles did not always match the Italian ideal. Physical anthropology hints at this diversity. While the average Roman soldier along Hadrian's wall stood around 168 centimetres, the Syrian archers likely measured a few centimetres taller, and the Dalmatians brought a stockier, more muscular build. These differences mattered, especially in a place where the climate demanded extra protection and the terrain punished the unprepared. The oversized shoes from Magna, clustered in the deepest, oldest ditch layers, may reflect this multicultural mix. A practical response to larger feet, or perhaps to regimental traditions that favoured more substantial footwear for certain roles. The presence of both Syrian and Dalmatian units at Magna complicates any simple picture of the Roman frontier. Here, the northern edge of the empire was held not just by local recruits or Western Europeans, but by men whose journeys began in distant cities and mountain villages. Their stories are written into the very fabric of the fort, in the inscriptions left behind, the distinctive bows and cloaks depicted in relief, and now in the leather soles that once pressed into the mud of Northumberland. The shoes, especially the giants among them, invite speculation but resist easy answers. They stand as evidence of an army drawn from every corner of Rome's world, each pair a silent witness to the crossing of cultures and the daily negotiations of identity at the edge of empire. Roman military footwear followed a strict pattern, built for utility and endurance on the march. The standard issue for infantry was the caliga, a robust sandal with thick, hobnailed soles. These soles, cut from cattle hide, averaged about 4 millimeters thick and were studded with iron nails to grip rough ground. Most Roman soldiers along Hadrian's wall wore shoes in the 25 to 28 centimetre range, which matches a modern UK size 7 to 8. That size band appears again and again in the shoe records from nearby Vindolanda, where over 5,000 shoes have been catalogued. Only a handful at Vindolanda ever approach 30 centimetres in length. Dr. Elizabeth Green, who specialises in Roman leatherwork, has examined the Magna finds up close. She confirms that the shoes from the ditch are not distorted relics or accidental stretchings. The preservation is so complete that the original stitching, nail patterns, and even wear marks are visible. Soles show the kind of even abrasion that comes from regular use, not ceremonial display. The Magna shoes are authentic Roman caligae, just built on a scale that stands out sharply when set beside the usual garrison supply. Their size and condition offer a direct line to the feet that once filled them, and to the daily realities of life on Rome's northern frontier. Elizabeth Green lays out each major theory, weighing them against the evidence from Magna's ditch. Overshoes remain a strong candidate. The largest shoes all share features that could suit an outer layer: broad soles, thick stitching, and sometimes less wear than the average caliga. Roman soldiers on the northern frontier were known to improvise with extra leather in winter, and the cold, wet climate of Northumberland would have demanded more protection than the standard issue. Yet these Magna shoes are built to last, not just to slip over another pair. Most show the same hobnail patterns and even wear as primary footwear, not the loose fit of a true overshoe. Cold weather adaptation fits the landscape. The exposed ridge at Magna, battered by wind and rain, could have pushed the garrison toward larger, insulated shoes. Still, there's no sign that the Roman army issued outsized boots as standard practice elsewhere along Hadrian's wall. The closest parallels, Vindolanda and Saalburg, yield only a handful of big shoes, never in such numbers. The idea of exceptionally tall wearers is tempting. A 32.6cm sole matches a man well over 6 feet tall, and both Syrian archers and Dalmatian troops stood above the Roman average. But the odds of 8 or more giants in one ditch at one time strain belief. The regional or regimental habit theory adds another layer. Perhaps Magna's garrison favoured a style or supplier known for generous sizing. Yet no single explanation fits the pattern. The cluster is too systematic for chance, too consistent for accident, and too concentrated for a simple answer about body size. No consensus has formed, and the mystery remains, anchored by shoes that refuse to shrink into any easy category. Rachel Frame outlines the next stage with a clear sense of purpose. Deeper coring is set to refine the ditch's stratigraphy, targeting the lowest, most organic rich layers where the largest shoes appeared. Radiocarbon dating will anchor these deposits more securely in time, while stable isotope analysis of the leather promises to trace the geographic origin of the hides, whether they came from local British cattle or were imported from distant provinces. The team plans to replicate the oversized caligae, testing their performance in simulated frontier conditions to see how they hold up to cold, mud and long marches. Skeletal remains from the fort's cemetery may help correlate shoe size with actual stature, offering a biological link to the mystery. Meanwhile, every shoe that leaves the ground faces a race against desiccation, making conservation a daily challenge as excavation continues. Each of these steps pushes the investigation forward, transforming a puzzle into a research agenda. Archaeology still delivers questions that no written record answers. Each unearthed shoe proves how much we don't know about who defended Rome's edge, or how far identity stretched along Hadrian's wall. Today, new discoveries keep rewriting the story of empire and migration. Sometimes the biggest mysteries are found in the footprints left behind. What's your theory? Let's hear it in the comments.